Hey Paisanos! Well, everyone has been asking me for an update on the G Gundam sequel, and as much as I'm psyched up for what this could be, the information so far has been dribbling out at a very slow and frustrating pace. So there's not that much here to go over, but I think there is enough for me to go over in this video. And also I was working on another video about Master Asia, so fuck it, let's just combine them so I have enough for a whole video. So early in March, there was an announcement of a Gundam 45th Anniversary special livestream event, with several key promises of the event. Firstly, that Soletta's VA would be there, Amuro's VA would be there, and that Domon's VA would be there. And the internet at this point was pretty on fire that they would definitely announce something big, and they were hoping it was a G Gundam sequel. Now, me personally, my utmost finest wishes for the event was that Amuro would announce either an Origin 0079 remake or a Moon Gundam adaptation, because Moon Gundam is being animated in UC Engage, and we just had the Kakarot Stone movie, which made some money. And then I was hoping that Soletta would announce Gundam Witch Mercury Season 3, because people are, strangely enough, getting more into that after the fact than they did when it was coming out. But yes, the big news was that hopefully the internet seemed pretty confident we were finally on the cusp of a long-awaited G Gundam sequel after 30 years, although no one really knew how big or how significant it would actually be. See, Gundam Seed Freedom had just come out in Japan, and that kind of confirmed that Japanese audiences and adults would come back for a throwback anime Gundam reunion movie. So the best case scenario was that maybe we would get a standalone G Gundam sequel, kind of like Endless Waltz and kind of like Seed Freedom. And otherwise, because Domon's Japanese VA was going to be at this event, there was also speculation that it also could have just been a fighting video game. And I would have been satisfied if it was a fighting video game, if that's what it eventually was. See, with the voice actor coming back, it seemingly implies that it could only be an anime or a video game, unless it is some complete fake out and they only brought him there just for the live stream to announce nothing. So anyway, the live stream eventually aired, and surprise to me, it only aired in Japan. It was fully region blocked, and it aired at 4 a.m. my time, and so I missed it. And because it was only aired in Japan, that made it pretty difficult to get a copy of the broadcast. I was hoping someone would like pirate it or throw it up, but no such luck. So I'm unfortunately kind of reduced to secondhand accounts, screenshots, and someone did like record it in like Thailand, but they like talked over it. Anyway, so based on all the secondhand accounts, I got a pretty good breakdown of what happened in the event. So from what I understand, the three voice actors just came out, sat at a table together, introduced themselves. We had Soletta's VA, Kana Ichinose, and yeah, they apparently just all sat around drinking tea and being social with each other and welcoming Kana Ichinose to the Gundam Voice Actor Hall of Fame. They also acted out a couple of their favorite anime moments. And they also apparently mentioned that they're selling a Gundam's themed poster for the solar eclipse, which I'm just finding out about now, several weeks after the eclipse has come and gone. And hey, didn't that eclipse only happen in Mexico and America and not Japan? Did the eclipse hit Japan? I don't know. Anyway, they also revealed a new real grade RX-78 version 2 model kit, and then they wasted some time promoting Gundam Requiem and Gundam Silver Phantom, which we already know quite a lot about. Then finally, they advertised a weird poster featuring a fancy party featuring Hiro, Domon, and Garad, the three 1990s Gundam AU protagonists. And lastly, they finally got into the G Gundam 30th anniversary, unveiling this new fancy golden logo and everything. And so far, the first thing that they announced for the G Gundam 30th anniversary was an obvious Blu-ray re-release of the show with a brand new digital remaster. The Blu-ray release is now available in 2 box sets, pretty similar to the old Bandai release from like 20 years ago. Anyway, then they finally got into the good stuff. So all they really revealed at this time was a mysterious new G Gundam character, the first new G Gundam character in 30 years. So here she is. We know nothing about her. However, we do know a couple of things about her, just judging off the art. So judging by the art, we can tell several things about this character. Number 1, she smokes.
Remember, if she smokes, she pokes.
I'm sorry, I had to. Number 2, she is apparently wearing a majestic looking kimono, but with a cloak on top of the kimono. And that being said, it doesn't quite look like a Japanese kimono. It looks like partially Japanese, maybe a little Chinese, maybe even a little Korean. So she's definitely Eastern, but we're not sure where. Number 3, she has a big old sword, and while we know Domon had a katana from time to time, this sword she has is a broadsword, which is a far more interesting choice. Because aside from like Trunks and DBZ, I feel like anime usually gives these sort of swords to like more knightish or fantasy era characters. And number 4, the last and most speculative part, is her hair. Now, going off her hair, you might notice that it's kind of an unusual style. It's like these hair cone things. Now, at first glance, that kind of screams 1980s witch, but ignoring the shape of it, like if you turn it sideways, it kind of resembles the head cone on the old Master Gundam. So, while some people at first immediately speculated that this character could be Rain and Domon's daughter, the main theory of who the heck this woman is she might actually be Master Asia's daughter. Or even more randomly, she could be a complete stranger, a completely random person who has taken the Master Asia mantle and is now trying to make a name for herself as either the new Master Asia or the new Master Asia number 2, or sure enough, the new undefeated of the East. Now that is the main theory of who she is. I've done some further research in this theory, but I'll be saving it for the second part of this video because some of it is a little bit gruesome. Anyway, that's about as far as we were with all that until thankfully today we finally got a real update. And the real update finally came from the man himself, Yasuhiro Imagawa, director of G Gundam, director of that one really good Mazinger Z show, and director of the anime classic Giant Robo. And he has given us official confirmation that a G Gundam side story project is indeed in the works. This side story will be released in the summer of this year, and it is a completely new spin-off scenario / side story / epilogue. This side story will cover events that take place in the same timeline as G Gundam, but then we'll also explore the aftermath of what happened after G Gundam. And that's about as far as we know. Then Imagawa released a statement. His statement is as such: "The undefeated of the East has long since passed away. Ignoring the things left undone and overlooked for 30 years, they've wreaked havoc in my mind. Without a ring to unleash this turmoil, I've turned to sulking, and I've grown round and fat with my frustration. This hand of mine is burning red, and it has finally smashed through the wall of the outside world. Who will fight? What will this fight be? Wait a little bit longer. The gong is about to ring." Alright, so that's interesting. So yeah, this is a G Gundam side story scenario novel detailing something that happened at the same time as G Gundam, but then after it introduces that, it will transition into the long-awaited G Gundam sequel. And the fact it is a novel isn't a disaster in my opinion, because in Japan it's pretty standard to focus test anime stories as novels and then animate them after the fact if the novel is profitable. Besides, some of the most popular Gundam stories ever started off as novels, like Hathaway's Flash and Gundam Unicorn. Although that being said, it took them about 20 years to actually animate Hathaway's Flash from the novel being released. Okay, now to end out the video, here's another video where I'm going to further speculate on the character and her possible relation to Master Asia. And I'm unfortunately sectioning this part of the video off because I randomly have to bring up the concept of genital mutilation and human castration somehow. So if that's going to freak you out, if you're not cool with LGBT issues, it's pretty freaky. So just leave now if you're not cool with that. Alright, so let's recap about Master Asia. Now, Master Asia was essentially the main rival / hero / anti-hero of G Gundam. Sure, he was the villain, but he was a majorly complicated guy. Now, going through the original G Gundam, you would expect that he would have been possessed or somehow corrupted by the Devil Gundam, but he repeatedly said he wasn't, and in the last episode where he died, it's revealed that he was never possessed by the Devil Gundam. Even though Domon's friends were possessed by the Gundam, he fully was never about that. He was totally acting of his own volition because the Devil Gundam gave him an opportunity to stop the Gundam fight system and its cycle of destroying the Earth, and he considered that helping to overthrow this shitty system was less evil than allowing it to continue. Now, for that reason and a bunch of others, Master Asia ended up being pretty much consistently one of the coolest characters in G Gundam. His constant impressive use of superhuman abilities, that's a constant thing that Imagawa usually features in his work. There's usually at least like one superhero character in like all his work, and in G Gundam it was Master Asia. On top of that, with his pro wrestling level of trash talk, it kept the show very interesting. And then finally, there was the complicated relationship between Domon and Master Asia. Despite the fact that Domon had a loving family with parents and a brother, by all accounts, Domon implies early in the show that since a young age, Master Asia has been raising him in the wild to be a martial artist. And in several of Master Asia's early appearances, Domon is besides himself at what the hell is going on, what is Master Asia doing. Domon tries to make several excuses for Master Asia. He tries to save him before he fully understands how low Master Asia has sunk in pursuing the Dark Gundam. Now, despite that, there is something weird about Master Asia from G Gundam, and this is something that I've only recently figured out. And the weird thing about Master Asia is that he's actually based on something. Now, when I say that he's based on something, now, I mean, sure, if you think about it, almost all the main characters in G Gundam are based on nationalistic, stereotypical archetypes, and perhaps the only character that isn't based on that would be Alan B. Beardsley, who is weirdly actually based on 4 Murasame from Zeta Gundam, but she's nicer than 4. But yeah, there's definitely a tradition of Gundam characters being loosely based on other Gundam characters, or even other anime characters, and Domon can be seen as like derivative of several similar 70s shonen martial arts protagonists. But the issue here is that, as it turns out, Master Asia is actually based on another character, also named Master Asia. Now, this isn't quite the same character, and this isn't quite the same situation as a character being adapted by 2 different companies. Like, you have the classic handsome green Disney Peter Pan and the dirty brown fox Peter Pan. Like, the situation here is that the original Master Asia is this kind of vague and kind of interesting shadowy figure from Chinese literature. Now, I'm not a huge scholar of Chinese literature, but there are 5 things known about the original Master Asia. Number 1, his literal name is Master Asia. Number 2, his title is the Undefeated of the East. Number 3, he is a complicated, antagonistic character with unclear motivations who, despite being an antagonist, is also very devoted to the martial arts. Number 4, because he is so devoted to the martial arts, he cannot be defeated in them. And number 5, this man has no dick. Thanks, Peter. So yes, now that being said, the G Gundam Master Asia is basically an original character, aside from the name and aside from the title Undefeated of the East. This character is mostly a full creation of director Imagawa, and if he had a different name, he would be a 100% original character. But now for the rest of this video, I want to discuss the original Master Asia, the one from the literature that inspired the one from G Gundam. So the original Master Asia was created by Hong Kong writer Louis Cha in 1967 when he wrote a novel called The Smiling Proud Wanderer, or as it has sometimes been referred to in America, its alternate title, The Wandering Swordsman. Now, I haven't fully read this book and I haven't fully digested it, but a brief summary I got online tells me that the book is about an orphan named Chong who is really good at using swords, and he seeks to gain martial arts scrolls to learn advanced techniques to become more stronger and more powerful. Unfortunately, he eventually comes at odds with the Holy Cult of the Sun and Moon, a standard weird religious cult who, despite having the name Holy in their name, seems to be doing constant satanic shit. And this cult is of course led by the mysterious Master Asia, a man who did not create this cult, but who took it over with his martial arts prowess. Now, what's interesting in the story is that the Master Asia that is described in this novel is also described as a eunuch. And this is not the first time I've heard about that, but now I'm going to go off on a complete tangent. But I have occasionally actually met in real life martial arts masters who are eunuchs, because the martial arts are just so complicated. And I also have to preface the story that when I was a younger man, I myself did once travel the world learning martial arts, because that's what you did back in the day. And I briefly studied under a eunuch martial arts master who told me a lot of things that I technically am not at liberty to say on air, but I will vaguely hint around them. And the main thing that my master once told me is that every man has a secret but obvious weakness. Now, I can't reveal what that weakness is on YouTube, but it is something that all men just naturally have, and it's the fastest and most efficient way to defeat them. Now, my former martial arts master, who I will not speak much of out of respect and fear, has told me that in his training, he underwent iron skin training using a Chinese concoction to make his skin as strong as rocks and to make himself completely invincible to ordinary attacks. However, he eventually used so much of this Chinese concoction that the strength training, so to speak, caused his soft and squishy parts to become so rock hard that they could no longer squish, so to speak. Anyway, that's that man's story. Back to the Swordsman novel and the fictional Master Asia. The Master Asia in this novel is apparently a eunuch because there was some sort of high-level martial arts scroll in the story called the Sunflower Scroll. And the Sunflower Scroll is a sword technique that only works if you cut off your balls. Honestly, that explanation makes even less sense than the real-world example I just talked about. I could kind of get if this was some kind of weird super high kick attack, but I don't really see what benefit there would be to using a sword if you're a eunuch. I honestly kind of think like the loss of like hormones would make like the average person lethargic and fat. But anyway, the novel Master Asia is also described as beautiful like a woman and a man with gender-neutral features due to his castration. Now, The Swordsman has been adapted several times over the years since it came out in 1967, several times in China, a couple times in Hong Kong, and a couple times in Taiwan. And in 1990, like literally a few years before G Gundam came out, there was a very famous adaptation of the story in Hong Kong. This adaptation was a trilogy of movies, Swordsman 1, Swordsman 2, and The East is Red. Now, this was the first time these novels were adapted as a movie, and in many cases, that makes it sort of the most influential version because it's the first time anyone really ever saw the story acted out as a movie. So, the movie trilogy consists of the first two movies, Swordsman 1 and 2, summarizing the main story of the novel. But then the third movie, called The East is Red, is more or less a side story about Master Asia's backstory. Now, what's important about this movie, the main reason I'm bringing it up, is that in this movie, Master Asia was portrayed by Taiwanese actress Bridget Lin, who you might notice from her name Bridget is a woman. The in-movie explanation was that Master Asia castrated himself, and then after castrating himself, he eventually turned transgender. Without drugs and without a fancy modern sex change, he just turned into a woman out of sheer force of will in medieval times because he wished for it hard enough. Okay. Anyway, after this movie, I'm under the impression that the trans version of Master Asia was actually pretty well received in Asia, and actually became popular enough to show up again in several additional adaptations after this one. Anyway, that's about where I'm at with this story right now. I haven't actually seen these movies, but again, I'm digging into this and I'm curious about this. And you know what? I want to check out these movies, but unfortunately they're Chinese movies from 30 years ago. So I'm going to have to go to like the black market in Chinatown and like talk to a guy to see if I can get them. And if I can get them, I don't know if I can get them with English subs. So that's a whole hassle. However, tying it back to the brand new G Gundam mystery character, it is still thought that this character is somehow related to Master Asia because her overall resemblance closely resembles Bridget Lin's character from The East is Red. And again, that was a movie about sword fighting, and this new lady has a sword. A very similar sword. Now, it is even possible that this character could even be the trans version from the movie, but again, because this is a random tangent that the 1990s adaptation added, and not something from the original novel, who knows? It's kind of up for grabs. It's kind of like the fact that Frankenstein usually has green skin and a flat head, but that's not how he looks in the original novel. In the original novel, he's just a stitched together guy. All the flat head and green skin shit came from like the 40s version with Boris Karloff. So anyway, yeah, that's about where we're at as far as the G Gundam sequel now. Hopefully when the novel does come out, it reveals like, did Master Asia have a secret family? Did Master Asia have like some weird daughter he like abandoned? Was Master Asia secretly into prostitutes? Who knows? But Hopefully the novel comes out. Hopefully it sells enough copies to get animated. And yeah, let me know if you guys are interested in more G Gundam side stories, because there's one or two that I've never really dug into because they came out in the 90s before I gave a shit. Like, you know, the one about the dog Gundam? Oh, dog Gundam, you are too pure for this world. All right, anyway, I'm Buster Green, and I have been waiting for a G Gundam sequel since I was a little kid. Good night, everybody.